This is Twisted Passages with award-winning author Marie Sutro. Now, let's take a deep dive into the dark world of psychological thrillers and meet the authors who created them.
Hello, and welcome to Twisted Passages. I'm your host, Marie Sutro, and today we have #1 New York Times bestselling author Lisa Scottoline here to talk about her new release. This changes everything.
What an opening, baby!
It's you, Lisa. It's you.
I always love talking with you. You always ask the best questions, but mostly I have the most fun talking with you. Your love of books shines through, and that's the best thing ever. After carbohydrates, of course.
Well, carbs win out over everything.
Totally.
Welcome back to the show, Lisa. You know I want to gush all over you, but before we do, can you start us off with an overview about what this changes everything is about?
Well, long story short, it's about a woman who one day is on the FaceTime call with her best friend, and the woman lives in Tuscany now, and her best friend's in the States. And while she's talking to her best friend's visiting her grandmother, I'm not giving anything away because this is basically page 2. And the best friend walks in to visit the grandmother, and the grandmother sadly is murdered on the floor. And then she hears someone leaving from the kitchen. So her best friend runs after the person. And that's how the book starts. And I hope it never lets up. And I hope it changes everything. I really wanted to explore so many things with this. First, to tell a story about the bond between best friends. You know, mainly I'm divorced twice. Yay. So, my besties, and you're one of them, Marie. I hang on to my girlfriends and they hang on to me. And with all the plot twists life hands you, and I've been on FaceTime calls and go, oh my God, should I be seeing this? Oh my God, this is bad. The technology is another issue I wanted to deal with. Are we intruding in people's lives? My daughter will say to me, can you FaceTime now? And she knows that I'm going to look like horrendous. I try to clean up a little for you, but, and so I love that sort of issue of how technologically brings us closer, or how good is it? And also, what are the limits of friendship, if any? Because the character, Julie, has to make a lot of choices in this novel, like husband versus best friend. How do you make that choice? There's a lot of thematic stuff happening, but it's mostly these two really best friends setting out to discover and find the murderer of a really beloved grandmother, which is something else I wanted to talk about. And also that they get a lot more than they bargained for. That's probably the convoluted answer, and I hope your viewers can follow.
It is not convoluted at all. That opening scene, I think we talked about your opening scene the last time you were on the show because you do them so darn well. And we're like, oh, we're in the kitchen. And I have to say, this character is one of your recurring characters. She's coming back from the unraveling of Julia.
Right.
And you put her in this kitchen, and for folks who have read the first book, you're like, oh my gosh, you're fangirling that she's back and she's in the kitchen and it's great. And for folks who haven't, you're like, oh, what a beautiful kitchen. She's in it.
Right, exactly. I never, even with the Risotto series, any series I do, and this isn't a series yet, but I don't want anyone to study anymore. Like, we don't have to study. So you don't have to read the previous book to get what's going on in this one. So you're absolutely right.
And then you just grab us. And like you said, you did not let us go. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, no wonder, she's a thriller master, because she truly is. I mean, you took us from chapter to chapter. There were so many times where you're like, okay, this crime is being investigated. Are they going to find out who did it? Are they going to be in the crosshairs? What's going to happen? But the twists and turns you threw in. At one point, I was next to my husband and he was on his phone doing something and I was reading. I closed the book and I turned over and I was like, oh, do you know what she just did? And
oh, you're so sweet.
I don't want to spoil for anyone, but it involves a phone call, and it's something that happens after the phone call. And I just was like, and now all of a sudden he can't be doing whatever he needs to hear about Lisa's book and what's going on. And he doesn't even know
Hug him for me.
is, but he's got to know
for me.
So
He sounds like a good one. Keep him.
Yeah, it was, all the way till the very end. And what an ending.
Thank you. That's so kind of you to say. I worked so hard on that. Because I think I don't write with an outline. So I just trying to figure out what would logically happen next. And when you have I feel like it's a lot like life. Like we really don't know what's going to happen next. So, but we have a set of people around us who behave in certain ways, and they give us what happens next. And so, a plot twist, a surprise ending is just a plot twist at the end. So you go, well, people give you enough surprises in your life. And sometimes an ending like that just suggests itself. And it did. So I went with it. I was like, oh, I like that. I like that.
One of the things I wanted to go back to that you mentioned a little bit is you really put the screws to her in this book, because you gave her this absolutely high bar that she needs to meet in helping her friend, and that she wants to be there for her friend. But then, oh my goodness, did you put the screws to her back at home with her husband and child? We're sitting there feeling for her in every way. And I thought, wow, this is this existential question for women since the beginning of time.
Right.
Do we stay home? Do we have jobs? We're pulled in so many directions. Nature is trying to root us firmly in that home, yet we are individuals.
Right.
That was beautifully addressed, Lisa. Can you talk a little bit about why that came up as a major plot point and theme for you in this?
Oh, you're so kind to say that and to have picked that up. Look, I'm a single mom and always have been. I have a wonderful daughter, now a novelist in her own right. And that's easy for me because my priority is her. And there isn't a competing interest. But sometimes there's work stuff. I did have a disastrous second marriage, which we can talk about if we have a drink. And those pushes and pulls people feel all the time. And I think there's a series of, I think of them as little micro decisions that you make every day. When you have a child, when you have a friend, when you have a dog, how do I cut this decision? When is it okay for me to go, somehow this is really important that I do this? Like, especially women, how we are pre-children. Like I have best friends of 30 and 40 years standing. They knew me before my daughter was born. So they know you back when you were an individual and you were a cappella. Do you let that go? You can't let those people go. And in fact, what in the times of my life, when my daughter's been ill, it's my kitchen cabinet of best friends who are like, how is she? How is she? When I'm sick, her friends call, generationally. And my mother was always my daughter's biggest supporter. So I really wanted to, and likewise, the relationship between a grandchild and a grandparent is something that I really wanted to look at in a non-sentimental way. This grandmother is really cool, but she's different. She's idiosyncratic. And I kind of like that as we get older. I'm not a grandmother, but I basically I've gotten pretty wild and idiocy. We get set in our ways. We like things a certain way. Middle-aged women, especially of a certain generation. Now I'm getting far afield from your question. This is shading into therapy right now, Marie. So I hope you're ready. But, we've been saying yes to so many people our whole lives that I think you start to come into your own a little. I love being as old as I am. I love being able to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And it's okay if you're mad about that because I want to do this. And that's a choice that I didn't make so easily younger. And I think this character who's 40 something is learning to make that choice, but they're never easy choices. And a lot of, I always love exploring the no-win choice. So many of my books are the no-win choice because honestly, life feels like that way sometimes. Someone's going to be mad at you. Oh, that's too bad. Let them get over it. But that's easy to say. And sometimes you're not sure what's right. So when Julia goes on her journey with her best friend to try to help her solve this terrible murder, and she is very aware her best friend needs her. Can you desert your own life? Well, if you have a great and supportive husband, and he is pretty great and supportive, but even he has his limits. And you have a young child who needs you. you can't even explain to kids that you're going to be gone for a day, much less 2 weeks. And so we have all of these costs to our decisions. And I think that's a very relatable part of the book. Not everybody's going to go to try to solve a murder. But if your best friend gets sick and needed chemo and needed somebody to drive her, you might need to be that person. And if you are, what happens then to your family? So many of us, by the way, are just caretakers all the time in a good way, whether we're taking care of our parents or relatives or besties or whoever. I mean, I take my dog to water therapy. I don't work that for 2 hours. I have to watch a 14-year-old cavalier go like this. I'm trying to keep this dog alive. So we all have competing interests, and we have to decide what matters more. You can't give that up.
And like you said, the no-win scenario.
Right.
So
Right.
many things are that way. And how much is asked of us every day. And sometimes it's that one decision that you make the one time, well, you know what, I think my time or effort is better spent here. And
Right.
then it does cost you down the road. So
Yes, it does.
It is those choices, like you said, the small ones, not just the big ones, but all the little small ones add up to who we are, defining us.
And as you say, sometimes you make the wrong choice. That's okay. People are human. You go, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Don't do that to yourself. You did that last time. That's okay too.
And I think that was one of the really smart things. You don't just have to go to therapy. You can read Lisa's books for therapy. On the path.
I had it for 10 years. I graduated. Now I'm so, wow, never a problem.
Well, you did it with your other supporting characters too, because a lot of them are in situations where they're looking at their own behavior saying, wow, why am I in the place I am?
Right.
What have I had agency in this? Or is it just everybody else? Right.
Right. And actually, I think some people are slower to think, what is my role? Right. I think that instantly. Like if there's a car accident right now on this street, I'm like, I must have had something to do with that. I take a lot of responsibility. A lot of people do that. Women in particular, I think. But I wanted to have minor characters because partly what's happening in this novel is that the last book, Julia's husband died. That's not a spoiler. We know that on the first page. And we know that in this book as well. And partly you're dealing with the aftermath of one person's death on a friend system. She was the widow, that she has the hardest row to hoe. But in this novel, Courtney is married. They were a foursome group. So her best friend, Courtney's husband, was her late husband's best friend. And so and I kind of love that. It's not a downer, even though it sounds like one, because to me, you matter. People matter so much in my life. I remember the people in my life. And I worry about them. I fear for them. I pray for them, and what happens to them changes me. And so I wanted to look at those ties that bind us and can hurt sometimes. And so a part of what happens in this book is that Julia has been thinking, wow, I've been really thinking about myself as the widow, but really I never thought about everybody else's, the death, the effect of my husband's death on everyone else. And I heard a widow say that once, and I thought, that's really insightful. That it's the time when you need the most empathy, and hopefully you're getting it. You go, wow, I need to think of others. And that's kind of lovely. So I wanted to sort of have that revelation occur to her too.
Well, it was a great way to examine it. I don't know if that was intentional when if you planned these two books in advance or how it worked, because Julia pops off to Tuscany and she has these amazing adventures there, but it's all about Julia.
Yeah, it's all about Julia. And also she has a tough row to hoe. That's such a cliche, I just said twice. But in that, when the first novel is about when Julia inherits an estate in Tuscany and doesn't know who it's from. The person who's given it to her is a total stranger, but Julie is an adopted child and doesn't know anything about her biological family. I have experience with that in my family. And so the first novel is really her exploring, well, wait a minute, if someone left me all this stuff, maybe they're related to me. And the second part of the novel, because I said, I feel like we need to integrate her. In other words, Julie is a person who has a wonderful adoptive experience, which certainly happened in my family situation, but still wants to know about their birth family and may travel to find your birth family. And it isn't all roses and rainbows. Sometimes it's, I don't fit in. And I hear from adoptees, and did have a little of that experience where I said, wow, it isn't all, not every adoption is perfect, and not every birth family is perfect. Human beings are what they are. So when Julia makes these discoveries, she has to integrate her whole life. And so the second book, This Changes Everything, really came to me, and I felt that her journey wasn't over. It was really had just begun. And so I kind of went there. It's really about identity as a woman growing up.
And I got that so clearly, because things have changed during our lifetimes for women, but they're continuing to change, perhaps being pulled back in the other direction.
Right.
And I thought it was so timely, because I don't think there is a woman in the world who doesn't feel that she's being pulled in a million directions at once, and that there is no right answer, and that she's going to fail. There's these balls in the air, and she's going to drop one of them, and she's
right. Exactly. Exactly. And I wanted to explore with Julia, because Julia is a person who, she has a kind of, we used to call it female intuition, whether it's a psychic ability or she does kind of get a premonition from time to time, which I will tell you that I took from life, because my mother had that. And we always said you're a strago, which is Italian for witch. But I think a lot of women have, I'll just talk about women because I am one, right? But I mean, like when you walk into a room and you feel like there's tension or people have been talking about you, what is it that makes you pick that up? And why do we, I don't want us to ignore that, because what I started to find in this novel is, as Julia feels so at sea, like you were just describing, at the same time, she's trying to come to terms with that power within her, that little voice that really tells her the way to go, even as she goes, I'm not sure, or I don't know if I want to listen, or I feel like so many times in life I'm going, you know what you want to do. Maybe you just don't feel comfortable saying it, or you're too scared, or you'll fall off, or whatever, like all that stuff. So it ends up being about her journey of empowerment, really, at the same time that she's so destabilized.
And it was so funny. I believe in your epigraph, you had a quote about intuition and the treatment of that. And it was really powerful, because it sat with me the whole time. Again, looking at how do we navigate that and say, well, is it intuition? It's just a passing thought. It's an inclination. But then sometimes the intuition becomes reality. And
yes, and it really does a lot. I mean, for me, I think about sometimes like you kind of knew that was going to happen. Like you kind of knew that. You could have seen that coming. And I think partly sometimes I think we as women are a little bit taught to not pay attention to that, or we want to please people, so they want us to go to something. We go, if I go to that, I'm going to get sick. Or COVID was a good example. I didn't want to do a lot of things because I'm like, I can't afford to get sick. I have to write a book. I have a contract. I feel like I'm the luckiest girl in the world that I get to do that. So if I go to that wedding, I'm going to get sick. And I was glad that I didn't. In retrospect, okay, I missed the wedding. We all got over it, and I lived. So, it's a dumb example, but I wish that we women would put ourselves down less, would think more of our inner voice, because that's really our truth. I mean, as a fiction writer, I'm always looking for the ring of truth in what I write. And if I let it come out of me and put it down on paper, even though it's almost a little embarrassing to say, or in disguise, like the character thinks it, but I really think it, that people will feel that. That's why I think books connect to people. That's why I love books so much. If you're writing something that you really is heartfelt, and you go, like how she feels about her daughter, how she feels physically to be in a different country from her daughter. I remember when Francesca was little, I didn't like to be in a different room. I just did not like to be in a different room. And she lives in New York and I live in Pennsylvania, and I don't really even love that. I would like everybody under my roof that I love, and so I wanted to explore that, is even that intuition is not a bad one.
And I think it's hard because for females, there's always that fallback word that haunts us throughout history, hysterical. You
Oh
know,
my God,
we're
right.
we're told we're too emotional. We're told that we're hysterical, or we're too dramatic, or we're always too something. And
Yes.
unfortunately, I remember the first time I was in a, a class. I was trying to learn more about law enforcement and how people get attacked and how attackers think.
How interesting.
And it was this guy, and he had, I don't know, 40 years experience. And it was mainly a class of women. And he said, always, when you feel a red flag or you feel something's off, he said, always listen, because nature gave you that to survive. And when you have instincts, he said, the people who follow their instincts 9 times out of 10, and it's random stuff, right, Lisa? It's like
Right.
we all hear people will cancel their flight, and then the flight went down. And it was
Right.
like, so many
Right.
people who canceled right beforehand. So there's something going on. I don't know what's going on, but
Yeah.
and I love that you touched on, you talked about some things. You dove into consciousness a little bit, which I thought was a really brilliant treatment, because
Thank you.
there is so much now coming out in academia and studies
Right.
about
Right.
consciousness, where they're able to prove that it exists outside the body.
Right.
So it's been
No.
absolutely awesome that you were able to put that all together. Now, one other quick thing I want to ask you about,
Sure.
and thank you and gush over, is
Oh, gush away.
you brought in some other characters from what I, who have been a fan of yours all these years, call the Lisa verse.
Oh, that makes me, you're so kind. What a nice thing to say.
And I cannot tell you how much that was another grabbing my husband's arm. Do you know who she just brought in, or who she just mentioned? So again, if folks haven't found your work, they have a whole treasure trove of things to find. And in this book, so much of it just comes together in so many great ways.
Well, you're so kind to say that. Should we tell them what we're talking about, or do you
It's up to you. For me, it was such a joy to find it.
The headline is that I'd written a series with Benny Rosato, who's this wonderful. I really like this character. I like all this. Who's a Philadelphia lawyer, and in this book, there's a lot of questions about what is law and justice in these turbulent times that we have. And when this character needs a lawyer and she's having this terrible situation outside of Philadelphia, I know who she would call. And then I was like, and I've been wanting to write about those characters, and I really think I'm going to write a whole entire novel about them. But because I think I read 14 of them, Rosato and D'Annunzio. But it was so great to see her, have Benny Rosato come in and see how she needs a little softening, but she really encounters Julia, and to see these two characters, how they relate to each other, because they're really very different women, but they can Benny can mentor a character like Julia, and Julia can teach Benny a thing or two about intuition and emotionality, as Mary D'Annunzio tried to teach her about, which with somewhat less success.
But what I loved about it, there's one conversation in particular that I'm thinking about, and they're both strong, wonderful, empowered women, but they have one conversation, and I think, if I recall correctly, Julia's talking about some of the challenges that she's dealing with, and how it is to try to make these decisions. And Benny totally gets it. So even though they're different women,
Right,
women having to make decisions and understanding, right, hey, when you're confronted with this, do you walk away or do you stand up?
Right. This is a complex legal, and there's physical danger. And Benny is no stranger to that. And for Julia, she's like, okay, the stakes are high in this book. In fact, it's the highest stakes I've ever had in a novel at the end, but I don't want to give that away. So everything was in order. Julia needs to grow up a little, and she does.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Like I said, that ending was just wow, and wow again.
Thank you.
As only you can do.
Oh,
Now, I am so glad to hear that the pup is in water therapy. I'm sure that's a challenge for you, but that is
my dog
wonderful.
cannot even dog paddle. That's how bad things are.
but hey,
he's going to keep it up.
That's right. And movement keeps us going, right?
Exactly. They want to try acupuncture. I said, how much is that again?
Yeah, that's a lot of something right there. I don't even want to know how you'd make sure you got all the needles out from all the fur. Oh,
I don't even want to watch that actually, but I'll be there for him. I'll be there.
Yes. Yes. Well, again, thank you so much for this, Lisa. For all of the tons of fans around the world who love you.
Aw.
Where is the best place for folks to find you? Is it website, social media?
My website's lisascottoline.com or scottoline.com. I'm on social media. It's only me. It's me writing the little things and putting up pictures of dogs and dumb stuff that I put up and what I ate and anything about the book. The tour schedule's up there on the website and on social media. So please come join. And we'll do some pre-order offers for this thing, and it'll be really a blast. So stay tuned.
Fantastic. Again, the book is This Changes Everything. It is every bit as phenomenal as everything that Lisa has ever written.
Oh, Marie, thank you so, so much. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Twisted Passages. We hope to see you next time.